It's not about waking up, going to work to see you can make money to pay your bills and then do it all over again the next day,
Mhm.
right?
Yep. Yep, absolutely. And we need to recognize that both the financial health and the physical health, it comes down to stewardship, it comes down to discipline, and it comes down to being really intentional.
So what do you mean by being intentional? Kind of dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think, like to your point of meal prep, like what you got to think with the end in mind, right? What do I want it to look like 10, 15, 20, 50 years from now? Some of us,
Yeah.
not me, but um and if that's what I want that future to look like, what do I need to do now? We forget that the actions every day compound to give you that future. And what we do today matters. So
Yep.
we have to be intentional with today instead of continuing to see each little event. Like instead of, I mean, I'm fully guilty. I know people can relate to this. Like if it's instead of asking, is this in my budget? We ask, do I have enough credit for that? Right. Like
Yeah.
instead of thinking like that, knowing, hey, if I want a life of debt freedom, then I say no today to things so I can get there. And if I want a life of health and strength in the future, then I'm going to be intentional with what I'm putting on my plate and what I'm putting in my house today. And I think about that with my kids. Like it's a huge responsibility in today's America because our kids have access to so much junk
Yep.
food so easily. And it's like, thankfully, my 7-year-old, she loves carrots, celery, apples. Like, I got to push protein more, but yeah, we got to teach our kids now. We think it's not a big deal. Oh, let them have the Coke. Oh, let them have this. Oh, let them have that. But we're developing their habits for the future. Sorry, I'm not
Exactly.
there, but
Exactly. No, and it's even us, we say, oh, it's only one cookie or one bowl of ice cream or one piece of cake or whatever. And we give ourselves these little passes, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's like, I'm not really walking or working out or whatever. And it doesn't have to be a big, you don't have to block out an hour and a half every day to walk, to work out, right? It's just a matter of number one, being conscious of, am I hungry or am I just eating? Do I actually have hunger pains or am I just eating? And another one is portion size. Middle class kid, uh, you know, borderline upper lower class, whatever you want to call it, right? It was always, oh, finish your plate. And so that gets ingrained, at least it did with me. And I had a lunch one time with a friend of mine and I was kind of hungry and I wasn't really hungry. And I said, oh, I don't want all this food to go to waste. And he just kind of shook his head and looked at me. He's like, well, it's either going to go to waste or it's going to go to your waste. Which do you want? And I'm like, what did he say? And he's like, it's either going to go to waste or to your waste. Which do you want? And it was almost like one of those things. It was like a little light bulb just went off in my head. Like, oh my gosh, he's right. And so I'm like, yeah, I don't have to eat this. My dad's not there looking at me with his glare going, finish your plate. But it's one of those things that kind of getting out of that habit. And a lot of that does come from when you were young and small. And,
yeah.
folks, here's the reality. I remember when I was young and I had the metabolism of a 25-year-old, I could eat anything and it would literally melt off. If you turn down the volume on the stereo, you could actually hear my body burning it off. That ain't the way it is today. All right. And it's one of those things that you've got to adjust and adapt and things like that. But, really looking at, being intentional with it. Right. And that goes to, the debt that goes to your waste and everything else. But, okay, so we're kind of burning through our time here, but, what are some things you need to focus on? Well, first of all, we've talked about this, developing a spending plan, right? Romans 13:8, owe no one anything except to love one another. Boom. So you don't want to be in debt. Now, is that saying, hey, you're going to burn if you have a credit card? No, not at all. Right. That's not what we're saying. So don't take it to the extreme. But focus on being debt free. Focus on, like you, is this purchase moving me closer to or further away from my financial goals? In some things, regardless of what the radio gurus out there say, you're going to need to finance, right? Maybe it's a car, maybe it's your home or a big purchase. But should you really go out there and if you don't have assets set up or whatever, should you really buy that timeshare? Maybe not, right? You really need that rent a boat for a few hours or whatever the case may be. But if not to knock it if you have one or whatever, but again, are you out of debt? And if the answer is no, then look to focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's super simple to do. You just list out all your debts if you want to do an Excel sheet and commit to debt elimination. And how do you do that? Well, there's the debt snowball. That's what I use personally. But you can actually save more money if you focus on what's called the debt avalanche. But I will caution you, it's not as rewarding as the debt snowball. The debt snowball, you stack your stuff smallest to tallest as far as the balances, and you get those small ones paid off really quick. It reinforces your decision, right? It really makes you feel good. It's like, okay, I'm doing this. I see progress. Whereas the debt avalanche, you may have some higher interest credit cards, and that's where you focus on the high interest first. That may be a big balance. So it may take you forever to get that first thing paid off. And that's, the debt avalanche, like I said, it does work, but it's for the right person with a lot of discipline. So if that's not, do what I did, focus on the debt snowball.